You're watching the East West Football Network. Welcome to Inside the Franchise. I got a couple of guests today. So of course, got Walter Stringer with me. We got Robert Street. He is a part of the East West Football Network. He's one of our divisional writers. We also have Terry on Rogers. And many people know Terry on. He's also a part of the East West Football Network. He does various shows with us. He's part of the basketball crew, the fantasy crew, and he also does writing as well. And then, of course, we got one of the best YouTubers, especially when it comes to covering NFL prospects, Broshmo, joining us on today's special. Welcome, gentlemen. How we all doing?
Awesome, bro.
Doing,
Wunderbar.
doing well, man. Doing well.
Awesome,
Same here.
awesome. So we're gonna be talking. We're gonna be talking about Raiders. We're gonna be talking some Raiders football, and we're gonna talk about some Dolphins football. So I got some of the best in the business to do so. Let's hop right into it, man. I mean, let's take a look. Let's go a little bit back so we can go forward. Right, Raiders. They finished 8-8. Right. They had some bright spots in the 2020 season. Let me go ahead and start off with Big Shot Rob. Why don't you tell me what was your big takeaway from the Raiders 2020 season?
Well, that defense didn't look too good, but the offense definitely showed some sparks with Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs. They made some big plays. I was really impressed by the game they won in Kansas City against the Chiefs, going into that environment and winning that game. I don't like what they did at the end of that game with the tour bus thing when they circled around the stadium like they had just won the Super Bowl. But that was a big win for the Raiders going into Kansas City and beating a division rival like that. They they had some big plays in that game with Nelson Aguilar. Obviously, they lost him to the Patriots. Also, Henry Ruggs. That Raiders offense definitely could be explosive. I think they just needed to shore up that defense. I know they lost some pieces on the offensive line, but I like what the Raiders have going into year two of the Gruden era. John Gruden's a good coach. I think he'll get that team on the right track this year.
Walter, what was your big takeaway from 2020 season for the Raiders?
Well, they were actually heading in the right direction.
It
They
looked
had
like
the
it.
huge win, of course, over Kansas City. Then they had that letdown to the Falcons, I believe, which was what the following week when they had the letdown to the Falcons. And I know we discussed it during the regular season. I think there's still I'm not as really I actually was never really that high on Gruden, the Gruden hire, the silly contract, him bringing in Mayock, and if you look at the situation for what it is, if you look at what they got for Khalil Mack, what have they really turned what they got for Khalil Mack into?
Good question.
And
Good
I mean,
question.
you look at that team in general, they were terrible against the pass. They couldn't really get too much of a pass rush, so they can always go corner. How high are they really on Derek Carr? Are they going to keep rolling forward with Derek Carr? They hit a kind of a rut offensively for like a couple, 2 or 3 games, going into that Jets game where things were kind of weird. Jacobs couldn't really get going. Carr couldn't really get going. To me, it just seems like there's some disconnect there between the coaching staff and those players. I'm just not believing it. How much longer are you really going to give Gruden and Mayock? Because
It looks
I'm
like
not
it looks
seeing.
like a long time. That contract was what,
Yeah,
10 years?
yeah, true. But contracts aren't really honored anymore in sports, and we already know that. So I'm just not really a believer right now. I'm not seeing the improvement in what the Raiders did. They brought in a 31-year-old John Brown who may be there all season, may not be there all season, may be there for one season and gone. They brought in Willie Snead, who's pretty solid in the slot. He does everything else underneath. They lost Tyrell Williams. They lost Nelson Aguilar. I, I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all.
It's all good. Terry on. Now look, okay. So for those that don't know, Terry on is he's a big Raiders fan. Just explain to us what is it like being a Raiders fan?
Oh, it's the most depressing experience of your life. But see, for me, I'm not coming on the show talking as a Raider fan. I'm
Oh
talking.
man.
I also work for the Raiders, right? So, and I think that a lot of the things that we get a lot of flack for. I think that if you're not within the team internally, it's hard to understand what they're doing a lot of the times, and so it's like mainstream media has that thing where they can jump out the window and have like opinions that are completely like, oh my God, well, the Raiders suck. Which I mean they've sucked, like and I'll be the first to say it, they've sucked. But I'm like, their moves to me aren't completely crazy. Like it's their moves aren't completely crazy. And I think that the biggest issue to me that I have with them is their ability to close out the season. They start off the season red hot, smoking fast, and then towards the end of the season, like the Falcons game this year, the Jets game a few years ago, it's one of those things to where they need to be more consistent. And I think that everything that they've done this offseason to me kind of proves that that's what they're trying to do, and get better in late games. So they addressed their entire defensive line, you know, um, and I like a lot of their defensive line moves, adding Ngakwe, adding Solomon Thomas, adding guys that are physical up front. Their offensive line didn't want to be there. So we're not going to I keep hearing Raiders like people chirping, or what about the offensive line? What about the offensive line? What about the offensive line? They didn't want to be there. Trent Brown caught COVID and he's been injured. He was the highest paid right tackle in the National Football League to not play any games. So I want people to understand that he never played. So it's like you can't really miss somebody that was never there, right? And that didn't want to be there. Gabe Jackson gained a lot of weight, didn't want to play, right? And then Rodney Hudson asked to be traded. And then we ended up flipping a 32-year-old center for a third-round pick. But the Raiders don't get credit for that. We've mentioned the Khalil Mack trade. People don't want to mention that one of the guys we got in the Khalil Mack trade, right, or one of our young defensive ends, got more sacks than Khalil Mack the last 2 years. So it's like the moves, Josh Jacobs, right? So it's like a lot of the things that they've done, yes, it hasn't totaled into a lot of wins, but it's like the Raiders are a much better team than they were, like before, it's just consistency and learning how to win these late games, and closing out games. Because they've been in every single one of these ball games, but they just lose. They lose in the dumbest ways possible, right? Like Air Bud, I feel like Air Bud is going to come on the field next and beat the Raiders, right? Because that's how they lose a lot of these games. These games are stupid. The Miami Dolphins game was a stupid loss. A lot of these games are stupid losses, right? But once they figure out how to win these good games, these good ball games, they're not a bad team. They played the Jets. I mean, not the Jets, the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs this year, and then in Oakland or Las Vegas this year, almost beat the Chiefs in a game. And Nelson Aguilar dropped the cleat third down ball, which that man can't catch a colt butt naked in Alaska. So New England gave him $13 million, right? Gave him a $13 million for 2-year contract, so 2 years, $26 million. We got John Brown, who was a 1,000-yard receiver a year ago, for a 1 year, $3 million. So a lot of people who are big on Gruden and criticize Gruden. So you're trying to tell me John Gruden and Nelson Aguilar, or John Brown, Nelson Aguilar, a guy who's never had 1,000 yards is worth $13 million as a receiver? No. Hell no. Right? So I'm like, a lot of the moves that get criticized, I'm like, bro, like it's an upgrade. Like it's a serious upgrade. And who was Nelson Aguilar before he came to the Raiders? Like he had his best year last year because it's his contract year, but everybody has a good year in contract year. So the thing is with the Raiders, I just need to see more consistency toward the end of the year. Because John Gruden, historically, the November-December win-loss record isn't very good. Once he corrects that, run the football a little bit more, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, get more physical up front, which they did in the offseason, you'll be a lot better. And I think that's the problem right there.
Wow, well said. I mean, Broshmo, how can you go up after that? I mean, what was your big takeaway from the Raiders 2020 season?
A lot of the problems I thought was defensively. I thought Paul Guenther was he tried to acclimate a defense that didn't work to the benefit of the players involved, mainly the secondary. Like you bring in a guy like LaMarcus Joyner who thrived as a deep safety, and you're like, all right, you're gonna play the slot now. Bam, bust signing because of that. These guys like Damon Arnett, Mullen, who are actually pretty good man corners. You're gonna start playing this cover 2 zone heavy scheme. It just didn't really work out. I thought Paul Guenther was just a bad choice, and it really led to a lot of defensive struggles. You kind of don't want the game on the shoulders of Derek Carr. He's more of a game manager, and when you're having to play catch up, it's not pretty. And I think that's what we saw last year. We saw a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad. think Gus Bradley. I think Gus Bradley's a good hire, and I think they went about free agency pretty solid to accumulate his scheme, what he wants to do. So
No, yeah, I think in a nutshell, I think I've always been. I was very vocal at the beginning of the season where I said, you know, when it comes to situational football, I don't really trust Derek Carr in situational football, and I think Terrion said it well, and Broshmo, Walt, I think you all said it well. I mean everybody, I think on panel, right? When it comes to situational football, the Raiders are not really the best, and to me, it seemed like they treated that first game against the Kansas City Chiefs as their Super Bowl, and they won their Super Bowl, and they kind of from there their defense just was not what it looked like, you know, in the lead up in the preseason, the lead up to the season. I mean, these young men look like potential stars on defense, but you know, they still need. Let's talk about some of those needs now. I mean, like you said, they've done some addressing. They got Yannick Ngakoue. We've seen that he's an 8.5 to 10 sack a year type of defensive end. He's that type of sack artist. Kenyon Drake, you know, you got a very, how do you what's a good word?
change of pace.
Yeah, change of pace. Running back in Kenyon Drake. I mean, we saw that he had a great a couple of years ago, and last year, you know, it was COVID season. John Brown, Willie Snead. So, you know, aside from that, and then changing to Gus Bradley, the needs. I mean, do the needs stay the same? Would you consider defensive line, linebacker, safety still top of the list, or would you consider offensive tackle? So right now, Raiders are picking. I believe it was 17th. So, big shot. Give me a prospect that you think that they can start off with at 17.
I haven't been really paying attention too much to the draft as far as the prospects. I mean, but
It's all good. Well, what do you think they should address? What position?
I think it should be definitely, you know, defensive tackle or linebacker. I mean, anytime you have a game against the Jets and you need a Mary to win the game, that's kind of a bad thing. You know, a game like that against the Jets shouldn't come down to a Hail Mary where you need a Hail Mary to beat the Jets. So I would definitely address the defense, try to beef up that defense, get the defense better. So, you know, you don't have to be in shootouts. That's the main thing. You don't have to play catch up with Derek Carr. You know.
Yeah, Terry,
you can just run the ball with Josh Jacobs. You know, that guy's a beast. Like run the ball with him. Play with the lead. Run the ball with Josh Jacobs.
For sure. Terry, have you been able to keep up with some of these prospects?
Oh, absolutely.
What would you like to see at 17 for the Raiders?
I mean, if you would have asked me this last week, I would have said Trayvon Mooring. Because if you think about Gus Bradley's defense,
okay,
he likes big guys in the secondary, right? So he likes big free safeties. You know, Trayvon Mooring, 6'2", 205 from TCU, the best safety on the board. But then they just addressed their safety with Carl Joseph. So they just signed Carl Joseph. So I don't know now how big of a need that is, because it's depending on how they use Carl Joseph. Because also in Gus Bradley's defense, he's had an Earl Thomas. So maybe he sees Carl Joseph and maybe as an Earl Thomas. Maybe he sees, you know, Jonathan Abram as, you know, more of a, you know, I saw Jonathan Abram more as the Earl Thomas in that defense, and they needed Cam Chancellor. And I think that guy, you know, Mooring would be a Cam Chancellor. But maybe he sees something, you know, now getting Carl Joseph, because the first time around when we had Carl Joseph, as you know, Broshmo had mentioned, Paul Gunther was horrible. He's probably one of the worst defensive coaches ever, right? He didn't put him in no positions to succeed. And, you know, you had this guy and Carl Joseph, like he's a free safety, but you had him rolling around in, you know, different levels of where he wasn't putting him in a position to succeed. You had a 5'8", 5'9" free safety guarding 6'6" tight ends. Like, it's not fair. And then blaming him for getting burnt for that, you know? So now I feel like they're going to put Carl Joseph more in the box, right? So I think safety is still a need, even though they got him. But I don't know how deep in the draft they go safety. I also know that they really are enamored with Micah Parsons, but I don't think Micah Parsons falls that far down to the Raiders. So could a right tackle be in the works? You know, Tevin Jenkins is a right tackle I think that they have their eye on. Rashawn Slater, I don't know if he falls that far. So if it's me picking in that position, I go to best defensive player available at that position, whether it's Micah Parsons, whether it's Trayvon Mooring. And I feel like you can go in the second round and you can get, a starting caliber right tackle, whether it's Liam Eichenberger from Notre Dame, whether it's Spencer Brown from Northern Iowa. I think that you can go later on in the draft and get that. But however, with the one thing that I will say about the Raiders is they tend to reach on picks for no apparent reason. I thought Damon Arnett was a massive reach. I thought Cleveland Farrell was a massive reach. So they're known to reach on somebody. And I mean Michael Jordan Space Jam reach, like that reach. So it's like they're known to reach. So within that, I feel like they're going to get a prospect we've probably never heard of. We're the only team that I know that drafted Sebastian Janikowski in the first round, kicker. So with that being said, you never know with the Raiders, right? But
You never know.
you never know with them. But if I were to say right now, I would either say Tevin Jenkins, the right tackle from Oklahoma State, or I'm saying Trayvon Mooring. So those are my two guys. And keep an eye on Michael Parsons if he falls.
So real quick before I get to Walt and Broshmo, so let's tune into some of the comments. SCU Productions, Raiders suck. Wow. Okay. Let's.
Okay, well.
And then he gets a little bit more. I don't understand Raiders moves. You were a defense away from a Super Bowl, and then you gutted your O line for mediocre PR and backup running back. And man who works for the Raiders says it's depressing. So I mean, look at that. That's the uniqueness of being a Raiders fan. I mean, wow, like the hate is real. Like when it comes to the Raiders, like people just generally just do not like the Raiders. It's just insane. It's nuts. Walt, what do you think, man? Picking at 17, what's gonna give them the most bang for your buck there at 17 for the Raiders?
Well, honestly, I don't think they're going to have to reach. I think there's going to be some talented guys who could fall to them in that spot. I'm going to go with the same level of defense. I'm going to go with corner. A guy like Caleb Farley could easily fall to the Raiders at that spot, given that back injury. And at that spot, why not? He's a hell of a player. And if the Raiders hit on a guy like Caleb Farley, no one's going to care about, the back injury or where they took him. Also, I think another guy, Kelvin Joseph, the cornerback from Kentucky. He's another big, long, athletic man corner. They can use help at pretty much every spot, safety and corner. So they can also use upgrades there. Also, another guy, Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa. I think Zaven Collins is a guy who gives them another playmaker within that front seven that they also need.
I like all those prospects you mentioned. Broshmo, I think you don't have to name the I know that you have a mock draft and I'm gonna tell the audience go tune into it, but what was it? Offense or defense? That's all you gotta say.
Best player available.
So look, on my behalf, right? This is what I'm gonna say about the Raiders. You play in a division, you have to face off against Patrick Mahomes twice a year. It's a given. Yannick was a good pickup, but you know what? You need to help Yannick. You need to get some pressure up the middle. You need a defensive tackle that can get to the quarterback as fast as possible. You need to collapse that pocket because I'll tell you this: Patrick Mahomes has time. He finds the time to make stuff happen, and with that special arm he has, you need to get him down as fast as possible. I think like what you said, Terry on. I think yes, you can still address the offensive line later on in the draft. Raiders fans, don't give up. So let's move along. Let's talk about the Dolphins here. Now the Dolphins are going to be a very unique situation. You got 2 first-round picks, right? The Dolphins have steadily been on the ascent here. So Rob, or let's start off with Terry on. Let's go backwards, right? And we're gonna wait for you guys, for you Dolphin fans, to kind of tell us a little bit about the Dolphins 2020 season. Terry on, what was your biggest takeaway from the 2020 season for the Dolphins?
I think for me, my biggest question is Tua going forward. I think that you got to make Tua comfortable in a lot of ways, and I don't know if the coaching staff necessarily did that. To start him, then to bench him, then to start him, then to bench him. Is he your guy going forward, right? Because that doesn't do a lot to his confidence. And personally, seeing him play live last year, I noticed a lot of the time, it seemed like he was afraid to get hit a lot of the times. And this is a kid that's gotten a lot of different injuries in college, like the hip injuries, ankle injuries. Like he's got a lot of injuries. So he's a guy that holds onto the ball a lot, and he closes his eyes a lot, and he not wanting to get hit. So to me, how are you going to make him feel comfortable? Like they already got Will Fuller this offseason. Will they address the offensive line a little bit more? Those are some of the questions that I have. But it's like going forward, not bringing back Ryan Fitzpatrick to me was basically a big telltale of like, okay, you did bring back, you did sign Jacoby Brissett as your backup, but also Ryan Fitzpatrick. We already know like Ryan Fitzpatrick's not there to be anybody's backup. He wants to play, and Jacoby Brissett's a guy that's okay being a backup, right? So to me, that's the story of what are you gonna do with Tua? Like is he your guy going forward? And if he's your guy going forward, what are you gonna do to build your team around Tua? Right. So to me, that's my story.
Well said. So let me ask you. Well, I mean, give me a bright spot for the actual Dolphins 2020 season. A bright spot.
Well, they won with Tua. I mean, granted, they didn't really give him the best chance to succeed by playing them, pulling them, playing them, pulling them. But they did it for a reason. Let's be honest. They did it for a reason. Teams typically don't do their top 5 pick quarterback that way. So there had to be something going on. We heard rumblings around the Miami Dolphins locker room about him. From what I saw, and I agree with Terry on completely. Another thing, he looks small in the pocket. He looks real small and he looks skittish. And he's terrified to push the ball downfield. And I think that's a big reason why they put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in, because teammates can tell when you're scared to push the ball down the field. And you can't win if you don't push the ball down the field. I don't think he really has the arm to consistently make those throws to get the ball downfield. And you can tell he struggles. He struggles within the tackles. He struggles seeing everything right now. Everything looks too fast for him, and he looks overwhelmed right now. So it's my one question is this. So if we go back to last year's draft, we heard that he was this generational talent. I mean, I never believed it, but we heard that he was this generational, once-in-a-decade talent. But he needs to be insulated. So how can you tell me a guy is a generational talent if he needs to be insulated with tons of talent? I mean,
Wow.
I don't get it. Now, in general, I love what the Raiders do. It's obvious that team plays hard for Brian Flores. I love what they did. They spent a lot of money on that secondary, and it showed last season. So I think in general, the Dolphins had a pretty good season last season. They took advantage of some games and some certain situations. But I think once they solve that quarterback situation, they will officially be able to move forward. But if Tua doesn't work out, they're going to forever hear about what could have been at that pick.
Especially with Justin Herbert right after him. So let's talk about that, right? Dolphins, they finished 10-6, 22nd in total offense and 20th in total defense. Man, Xavier Howard is just a ball magnet. I mean, 10 interceptions is unheard of. A big shot, Rob. What do you think, man? What was your big takeaway from 2020 season? And tell us of some of the 2021 offseason moves as well.
Biggest takeaway, I think, from the Dolphins was like Tua. He just looked scared to play at times. Like he just looked like scared in the pocket. He was scared to get hit. It was just a conservative play call, and they didn't open up the playbook. He didn't take many shots downfield, and that's why I think they benched him at times for Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think this season, hopefully in the offseason, he worked on more of his strength training and worked on throwing the deep ball better. But he just, at times he just looks scared. And, like with quarterbacks nowadays, like you want guys that are able to be mobile. But I think the biggest strength that Tua has is his accuracy. He's a very accurate quarterback, but the prototypical NFL quarterback nowadays that you see has to be a more mobile quarterback. So he has to be able to throw on the run and, be able to make – you have to be able to make the deep ball throws. I mean, because you can't really win in this league unless you can throw the ball downfield. So by the Dolphins signing Will Fuller, that'll definitely help. And right now the Dolphins have the 6th pick in the draft. So a guy like Kyle Pitts could definitely be a big safety net for Tua. They just need to surround Tua with as many weapons as possible. And, he just can't skip. He just has to be able to get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker. And he just can't be scared to get hit and just needs to get out of the pocket much quicker, because he does look small when you look at him on tape. But, hopefully he worked on those things in the offseason, he'll work with guys like Will Fuller. Hopefully, they'll be able to get a guy like Kyle Pitts to help. Kyle Pitts will be a matchup nightmare for anybody, especially in the red zone if they're able to get that guy. And the Dolphins, in their history, I don't remember the Dolphins ever having two good tight ends on their team at the same time, because Gesicki's a pretty good tight end. So for the Dolphins to have a tight end combo like that with Mike Gesicki and Kyle Pitts, that would be I'm not going to say it's going to be like Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, but it would be a dangerous combo, and that would take a lot of the pressure off of Tua, because he would have a safety.
It'd be a criminal.
Yep. But if Kyle Pitts were to get taken at 4 by the Falcons, then I think the Dolphins would have to either take one of those wide receivers from Alabama. I think it would either be Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. Personally, I think it's going to be Jalen Waddle, because I think Devontae Smith personally said that he doesn't really like Tua. He wouldn't want to work with him. So it would probably be Jalen Waddle. And I think at 5, Cincinnati would probably take Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase played with Joe Burrow at LSU. So Joe Burrow is going to want him as a number 1 wide receiver with Cincinnati. So that's how that would play out. But personally, I'm really hoping the Dolphins to get Kyle Pitts. It'll be interesting to see if they move up to 4 and do that trade with the Falcons, or just stay at 6. I mean, I really want Kyle Pitts. I'm hoping we get him, but if not, then I guess it'll have to be probably Jalen Waddle. We'll see, though.
So, Broshmo, obviously we all see that Tua struggled. He went 6-3 and got benched twice in 2 different separate games. Aside from that, I mean, what was the one thing that you liked as far as the team building aspect of the 2020 season?
Well, I mean, to mention, I don't think Tua. The plan was never to put Tua in from the coaching staff. I think that was probably front office move. I mean, that's again all rumors, but
yeah,
sometimes there's a little weight to those rumors.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I liked how the defense played. Obviously, I thought the Byron Jones was a very good compliment to Xavier Howard. That was just real nice. I mean, for me, corner is the most valuable position on a defense. You can never have enough good corners. It's a passing league. You could have one great pass rusher, and that changes the game, but you need a solid group of corners. So I like that. I liked seeing the defense. In terms of offensively, I thought Tua maneuvered the pocket pretty well. He had a few good scrambles. In terms of how he saw the field, I mean, he's not seeing. This dude's a rookie. He saw a different type of separation at Alabama. We're talking 2 to 5 yards of separation compared to the smaller windows you see in the NFL. And guys like Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, they're not going to give you that type of separation. That's why I think they went out, got a Will Fuller who's going to get tons of separation. Robert mentioned Kyle Pitts, mismatch nightmare. He'll get you a ton of separation. So I like them going forward. Again, there was things, yes, we didn't like to see from Tua. Keep in mind, he's a rookie. And the beautiful thing about the quarterback position and drafted in the first round, quarterbacks, they depreciate they don't depreciate in value. Look at what Sam Darnold's gone for. Look at what Josh Rosen just a year later still went for a second rounder. So regardless, I thought it was still a good get. Even if it ended up not being the right quarterback, I still think we could get value for him down the line if it doesn't work out. But I'm excited. I'm excited. I think the Dolphins have an opportunity to bring in a lot of talent offensively, mainly the offensive line. I'd like to see that offensive line be a bit more veteran. Guys like Austin Jackson. I really want them to move Robert Hunt to guard. I want them to bring in a tackle in a tackle-rich draft. I always projected Robert Hunt to be better as a guard comfort, but he actually played pretty well at tackle down the line. So not necessary, but I think you are expecting a lot from young players on that offensive line to protect your investment. So I guess we'll see in terms of progression how that goes.
So I guess in this case, we'll go ahead and name off some of these needs that are notable, right? Wide receiver, offensive line, and linebacker. So I guess Broshro, in this case, I know Big Shot said that Kyle Pitts was a good pick with the first pick, right? With the number 6 pick, because of all the trading, right?
Yeah.
And then so let's go ahead and have Walt kind of go ahead and give us, what do you think? What would be the best pick at 6, and then their pick at 18th?
Well, pretty much, I'm pretty think we all sure are all pretty sure that they're gonna go wide receiver with that first pick. I think they take the guy who's left, you know, whether it's Chase or Smith. I think they'll go ahead and go in that direction because they're not going to take a guy like Rashad Bateman at that pick as high as people are right now on Kadarius Toney. I don't see Kadarius Toney going that high. You can never have too many pass rushers, but there's not a pass rusher that they're comfortable with taking at that spot either. I think they can get a guy like Kwity Paye probably.
Wow.
And with that second pick, not the first pick, but with that second pick, also I think a guy like Travis Etienne, you need to help him out as much as possible. You know, and
You're talking about
having
Tua, right?
having a dynamic running back behind him helps. Also, no one talked about the fact that Penei Sewell could easily fall in their lap
That's very
with
true.
that pick.
And he could play
So-
all over the offensive line too.
Right. And I mean, he's an elite talent, you know, and considering the fact that they do need more veterans on that line, and maybe they don't need another baby, but you're going to give me a baby, give me a 20-year-old baby like Penei Sewell. So they have a lot of options at that pick. Me personally, I feel Penei Sewell after Trevor Lawrence is the second best player in this draft. And if you're asking me to put him up against Devontae Smith or Kyle Pitts is the only guy I would really consider. But I would actually take Sewell over Michael Parsons, Kwity Paye, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle at that spot because I'm just so sure that within another 5, 6, 7 years, we're going to be saying, hey, Sewell is top 2 at his position. Are we really going to say that about a Jalen Waddle or a Devontae Smith? So I think at that pick, you have to maximize the talent that's on the board because you have some flexibility with that following pick.
Well said. Terrion, you want to chime in on the Dolphins picks? What do you think? 6
Yeah.
and 18.
I absolutely agree with what Walt said. And you have to ask yourself, how did the Dolphins get that pick in the first place? They traded Laramie Tunsil. And so it's like the ultimate flip would be Laramie Tunsil for Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell right now is better than Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil can't stop holding. So it's like that's the issue. He grabs and holds more, and that's not neither here nor there. But that's the smart thing to do, right? But are they gonna go the route to make Tua feel comfortable and get some college receivers? Get a receiver like Devontae Smith that you can slide in the slot, easily get open, and he could get the ball out quick, you know, and that's somebody that makes them feel comfortable. With that second pick, Walt mentioned Travis Etienne. I like Najee Harris because he went to college with Najee Harris. So you could trade back and get a Najee Harris, right? Somebody again that played with Tua in college, somebody that he's familiar with, somebody that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Because I think at some point in the draft, the Dolphins have to address the running back situation. You know, they don't have a great running back right now. I believe it's Miles Gaskin. It's like Gaskin and a bunch of other spare parts. They need a running back. You know, so you do need to address that. And I think for me, the fit there would be Najee Harris, just because, like I said, I feel like it's going to be an Alabama heavy draft for them, and they're only going to do it solely for Tua. And I think how they draft to me tells me so much that they're really invested in Tua. If they go Alabama heavy, then they're invested in Tua. If they decide to go in another direction, like if you get Penei Sewell, you're still invested in Tua because Penei Sewell, you know, you have the Hawaiian background and things of that nature, a guy that could protect you in the long run. So yes, but I'm saying, like, depending on what else you do, like if you in the back end get a Najee Harris or a former Tua teammate, that tells me you're invested in Tua, right? So I think that if you draft Tua, you got to get the best out of Tua, right? So I think that's what they're going to do in the draft, focused on building that team around Tua.
Yeah, and so Broshmo, obviously I mean, as much as we want you to give us prospects, that people have to tune into your YouTube, check out your mock draft. So you heard from Terrion, you heard from Walt. Big Shot said, hey, Kyle Pitts and Rob, what would you think they should do with that second pick, offense or defense?
Well, if they don't get Kyle Pitts, that 6th pick, that's the guy I forgot to mention was Penei Sewell. That guy, good offensive linemen are hard to come by, and that guy, Penei Sewell, he didn't play last year at Oregon. He sat out the year, so he's going to be ready to go. And you know, he would be a great pick because you can never have too many good offensive linemen, and that guy is going to be a great offensive lineman. So if they don't get Pitts, that's a guy who they could definitely take. And then at 18, I would say, or 16, go running back, either Travis Etienne or Najee Harris, because I mean they need a bell cow running back. That's something that was missing last year with the Dolphins. I like Myles Gaskin, but he's more of like a change of pace back, more of like a third down type of back. And who else did they have? They had some other guy. I forgot his name.
Ahmad.
Ahmad, yeah.
They did bring in Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, that's another guy. Yeah, they brought in Malcolm Brown. But he's more of, I don't really see him as a bell cow running back. They need a bell cow running back. So I think Najee Harris is the right guy. He played with two at Alabama, but I would take Travis Etienne as well. But they're definitely going to need a bell cow running back, because if they're able to run the ball, that's definitely going to take some of the pressure off Tua, and then they could be able to go more play action and be able to throw the ball downfield with Will Fuller, and that'll open up the passing game. But they're definitely going to need to get a running back at some point in the draft, whether they do it in the first round with that second pick or later in the draft. They're definitely going to need a running back for sure. If they don't get a running back in the first round, they're going to have to get offensive linemen too as well. I mean, because they need to beef up that offensive line as well. That would be something they need to do also. So it's going to be interesting to see what direction they go in. I think it's all going to depend who's available with that first pick at 6 and what the other teams do. Because I think I was hearing Cincinnati also likes Penei Sewell as well, and they could take him as well. So I mean, we'll see what happens. It's anybody's guess what some of these teams do, and that's why it's so hard predicting the draft, because you really never know. Teams change their mind all the time, so you really never know what's going to happen.
No, yeah, for sure. And look, I'll go ahead and present this to Broshmo. Anytime you can help out your offensive line and then turn around and with 2 first-round picks, help out your defensive line, I think that you're already winning, because obviously if you're stronger in the trenches, you're giving whatever running back you have, you're giving them holes to run, and you're giving your quarterback time to throw or pass, and then your defensive line is only going to enhance with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones and Noah. Was it
Big Nagani? They also brought in Justin Coleman to play the slot.
Yeah. So I mean, when you stop, you look at it. I think if they do look at it as enticing as, man, Cal Pitts, wow, I think that he would be an instant upgrade and kind of give that confidence that Tua needs. But man, can you really pass up on Penei Sewell? A dream case scenario, I think, for the Dolphins would be Penei Sewell, and then of course, like this gentleman right here, Zach Bruce, Jalen Phillips. I think that right now Jalen Phillips is hot right now. I don't know if Kwity Paye would be there. If Kwity Paye's there, I will put Kwity Paye over Jalen Phillips, but I would have to say mock Broshmo. What do you think? Penei Sewell at 6 and Jalen Phillips at 18. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I like that. I don't mind that. I like the idea of them addressing the offensive line. Like I said, I prefer Robert Hunt to move into guard. Yeah. Solomon Kinley I think he's a much better depth piece. So yeah, no, I love Sewell, man. He's my number 1 OT. Not even close.
So it's almost unanimous. We feel offensive line and running back.
Not running back.
No, not running back.
I'm very anti-running back.
I don't know. I think, I said ETN for the simple fact that he's pretty much, from what I've seen, he's everybody's number 2, pretty much. But I feel Javonte Williams is actually the second best running back in this draft. So
I would agree with that.
If I could get Penei Sewell at 6 and Javonte Williams with that second pick, that says right there, okay, we're all in on Tua.
That's true.
I could see that happening with Eric Stootsville and just his lineage as like
with running back.
with running backs like Coach Tiki Barber, Marshawn Lynch, CJ Anderson, stuff like that. I could totally see that. I just don't think from a value standpoint that drafting running back would be wise.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and end it off. So let's go ahead and say the Raiders, right, are able to nail on, let's say, 3 key starters, right? Rebuild some way to find that magic on that offensive line, add some pieces on defense. What is the 2021 floor or ceiling, should I say, for the Raiders? Let's go ahead and go with Rob. You can go record if you like, or
record
playoffs. Yeah, just predict the 2021 season if they can land at least 3 starters.
I would say probably 9-7, 8-8, competing for a wild card spot.
Okay, okay. And what about your Dolphins? If your Dolphins are able to add some impact players, what do you think?
Well, we finished 10-6 last year and did miss the playoffs. So I think other than Buffalo, I think the division's pretty gonna. Well, New England might be is definitely going to be better this year, but we got to worry about Buffalo. So I would say probably about the same record, maybe 10-6, 11-5.
All right. Sounds good. Walt, what you got? What do you think? Let's talk about Raiders. If they're able to nail the draft, what do you think? What's their ceiling for 2021? I know that the schedules still don't come out, and we're gonna have a special on that, but
You got that extra game too.
yeah. Extra game.
Yeah, I think in the AFC it's going to be tough for the Raiders. I think there's some teams in the AFC overall that are just ahead of them. They're ahead of the curve right now. I don't see them better than Kansas City in the AFC West. The Chargers have more talent right now, but the Chargers just can't seem to get out of their own way. There's something wrong with that organization. Like they lose the same. I don't care who the head coach is. They lose the same type of games season in, season out, regardless of who's the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the special teams coach. It doesn't matter. They lose. It's something really bad, I think, with that organization right now. But as far as the Raiders, I think things are just too tough in the AFC right now. I think they can get to 8 or 9 wins, and that's mainly because I just don't trust the Chargers. And there's some teams in the AFC that we think could fall back. The Ravens could have a fallback. Now, as far as that AFC East, Dolphins in for a battle. I think they're in for a battle. I think New England's going to be a lot better than people are thinking right now. They've got a lot of capital. They made some solid moves in free agency. I think Buffalo held steady. They're going to be a year better. Their offenses are going to have another year together as far as Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. So you got to watch out for that. So it's going to be tough in the AFC East. But I think the Miami Dolphins, they have a chance to get back to 10 wins, maybe 11 wins, all based upon how Tua's development goes. It all comes down to the quarterback pretty much for every team. If Tua turns the corner and he proves me to be an ass and he proves everybody else to be one, and hey, you guys thought I was trash, but hey, look at me now. So, I want everybody to be successful. I really do. I just have too many questions about Tua, and it's going to be hard. We didn't actually answer another question about the Dolphins. What if one of those quarterbacks falls to them at 6?
I don't want to talk about it right now.
That would be it.
No, that would take that because we would go on course for like another 30 minutes.
See a young Justin Fields staring them in the face.
Oh man, it's gonna happen. But Terrion, give me your prediction. You can go Dolphins and then save your Raiders for last.
Okay, so I agree with the sentiment is. Just depends on what he does in year 2. Because quarterbacks are either year 2 they either excel or they drop and they have that sophomore slump. So if Tua can avoid that sophomore slump, to me that's the most important thing, and how the team plays around him. Like the defense, all of that, right? Looking at their division, they have a pretty tough division. Buffalo, if Buffalo can get a running back, a consistent running back, a bell cow running back, and maybe add another pass rusher, I think that the Bills are flirting to be a Super Bowl team. But it's like they're missing 1 or 2 pieces. And right now, I don't know if they did enough to dethrone Buffalo. New England, I'm sorry. I wish Kendall was here because I could completely just roast him about the Patriots. Because I'm not impressed by nothing the Patriots did this offseason. I'm sorry. I think Bill got a stimulus check and just overspent on everything. How Aguilar is a $13 million receiver, I will never know in my life. So it's like there's a lot of things that they did. Like I look at the receiving core. You have Cam Newton. You got a bunch of guys who can't catch. Cam Newton's not a deep ball throw. You got deep ball receivers, and he can't throw a deep ball. So it's like it just doesn't make sense. The Patriots, I like the tight ends, but outside of that, So then I'm looking. So me breaking down that division the way I'm breaking it down, the Jets. I don't think the Jets did enough. I still think the Jets are a bottom feeder. So I feel like they could finish second in battling with Buffalo. I feel like they're in that position battling with Buffalo. Borderline playoff 10-6, to repeat. As far as the Raiders are concerned, first and foremost, I look at the Raiders schedule. The Raiders schedule is kind of cake. They played NFC East. Sorry, Jerry, but they played NFC East. And again, I look at the NFC East. Washington still doesn't have a quarterback, so that's a game that they can win. The Giants have Daniel Jones. They still. I mean, yeah, Fitzmagic gave the Raiders nightmares last year. Of course, like so it was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. But at the same time, Washington, they're a solid team. They have a great defense, but there's still more questions than answers with Washington. I look at the Giants. They have Daniel Jones. I don't like Daniel Jones. I'm sorry. I don't think no. And yeah, Eagles, no, they could beat the Eagles. And then they play the Ravens division, which they could beat the Steelers, they could beat the Ravens. They could beat they'll obliterate the Bengals. I think that they could beat the Browns. They beat the Browns last year. So I mean, like just naming off the schedule the way that I did, and then the AFC West, the Broncos didn't get any better. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and the Raiders. I think the Raiders put all their energy last year in beating the Chiefs or showing the world they can play with the Chiefs, right? So my thing with the Raiders isn't their overall level of being a good team. It's finishing. Can they finish these games, right? If the Raiders learn how to finish a lot of these games, they're staring 11-5, 10-6 in the face. But it just really depends on how they finish. I see them as a 10-6 team, right? But it just really depends on how you finish. Like you can't play strong the first 3 quarters and in the fourth quarter decide to have 35 penalties in a row. Like you can't do that, right? You got to be a smarter team. So it just really depends on how they progress, right? But I'm gonna say 10-6, and after the draft it could be 11-5. But to me, it just really depends on how they finish games.
Broshmo, what do you think, man? I mean, if Raiders are able to pull off some key starters, I mean, what's their ceiling for 2021 season?
I think Walt kind of mentioned it earlier. It's a bit tough to. It really determined by the quarterback, and the Dolphins projection, that's a bit tougher because of Tua, but with Derek Carr, it's a bit safer, Yeah. I mean, I think for both teams, they're going to be battling for that 7th seed. It's really hard to imagine the Raiders. I think they'll be competitive, but yeah, man, Kansas City, they're still, they're the belle of the ball. I think Denver, honestly, they're a quarterback away. I think that's a really good team there in Denver, especially defensively. They have a ton of playmakers. They really just need a quarterback. Drew Lock ain't it. And then, yeah, it really depends on Herbert, So Chargers, they could be competitive. I think they've done enough additions offensively, which they probably still can in the draft if they want to try to pick up another tackle. But, yeah, I think that's actually going to be a very challenging division. So I think, yeah, we're going to be sitting at I think a safe projection's 500. Yeah, they fit, and that honestly, that feels like a ceiling too. Like I can't imagine the Raiders as a 10-win team.
Yeah, it's getting hard, right? I mean, we've seen like other teams that done great job building their team offensively, defensively. Most notable, like the Colts, right? I mean, they did a phenomenal job as far as obviously they were able to get their quarterback that they needed. But if you look at the way they've structured their offense and defense, it's done the right way, right? And they build it up through the draft. So it just shows you how important this is. So that's about it. I hope you all enjoyed well, we definitely enjoyed having you guys all on at the same time. And of course, everybody that tuned in, thank you so much. Make sure you go to YouTube and visit Broshmo. Exactly the way it's spelled on the screen. He just dropped his 2021 NFL mock draft. Hey, and leave him a comment. Let him know if he did good or not, man. But
got a 7-rounder next week too.
7th-round mock draft, man. We're almost 2 weeks away, so we're getting closer by a day. Thank you all for tuning in. Who knows? We'll probably do another special tomorrow. Until then, thank you all, and see you next.